Carlos, thanks for taking the time out. It's an honor to have you on the show, and we thank you for giving us a few minutes tonight. And Carlos, I have to tell you, Tony saw it before. I have your brother Lee May's first baseman mitt right in front of me. I'm going to show it to the camera. And I got it, I think, in 1973, and I still use it when I coach baseball. And
it's held together.
I just had to hold it up and show the Lee May name there, and that's terrific. But a little background on Carlos, folks. Hit 274 lifetime in a career that lasted from 68, Tony, to 76 in the majors. He also played a few years in Japan through 1981, drafted in the first round of the 66 amateur draft by the White Sox. And Carlos, I have to tell you, you know, when I first started following baseball, Tony, in the late 60s, early 70s, Carlos May's name came up because he had that, you remember the accident he had?
Yes.
In 69, Carlos, I believe, when you lost a thumb in the Marine Corps. And here I am, a young kid, so impressionable, big baseball fan. And then I see this, you know, I'm looking at Carlos as almost a war hero who actually came back after such a brutal accident. Let me ask you right off the bat, Carlos, did you think you'd ever play baseball again after that accident?
No, I didn't, because my thumb was not the total thumb, just the top portion of it. But you know, but gripping the bat, I was fortunate because I gripped the bat like deep back in my hand instead of on the tips like a lot of batters do. So it gave me like a edge. But I thought it was, you know, it came to the end. But my grandmother and stuff were praying for me, so I just came back. Plus, I was too lazy to work.
Yeah, but I was just amazed, and I remember you having the special batting glove, Carlos, and wearing the blue uniform of the White Sox. I just have these impressions in my head, and it was great stuff. And you started out in '68, Carlos May, for our viewers out there. In 1969, Tony, third in the Rookie of the Year voting, but he won the Sporting News Rookie of the Year award. This all coming after the accident and all that, so it was something to see. An All-Star in '69 and '72. He wore number 29 as a rookie, Tony, and then switched to number 17. And to this day.
Now, is that true, Carlos? You are the only player to ever wear your birthday on the back of your uniform shirt?
That's right.
May 17th.
May 17th. That's it.
That is something.
That's really neat.
And during his career, Carlos played first base, outfielder, DH. Probably the best 2 years of his career, 72-73, Tony. Had 68 RBIs, 96 RBIs, respectively. Hitting nothing less than 280 for 4 years in a row from 69 to 72. Also played in the 76 World Series when he was with the Yankees against Cincinnati. But question for Carlos.
Yeah, and Carlos, I'll tell you, that 70s, that White Sox team in the 70s, to me, that was such a cool crew. And, I mean, I just run down. I mean, you had Chuck Tanner as your manager. And I'm just going to throw a couple of names at you. And I want you to say to me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Jim Cott.
Competitor, great pitcher. Savvy pitcher. He knew what he was doing on the mound. He could, you know, get guys out even in his latter years. You know, he changed his speeds, and he had pretty decent location. He's just a all-around great competitor.
I'll give you a couple more. Pat Kelly.
Pat Kelly, speed, base running moxie, one of our leaders on the club and the clubhouse. He was like a clown, and he just was all around. A real good teammate. And
the last one I'm going to give you is probably Bob and my favorite. Next to you, of course, is Dick Allen.
Mr. Baseball. In my opinion, he was the best right-hand hitter I've ever seen. Next to Albert Pujols.
Wow.
Wow.
He was something. We talk about him all the time, because Tony goes back a little farther than I do, Carlos, and he remembers the time when back in Philly where Allen hit one. Well, you talk about
this was the Connie Mack Stadium. This is over the Coke sign in left center field. I watched it on TV. It was on the rise going out. And it was, and I mean, it was. There must have been like 5,000 people in the park, 4,000 that were booing him. I don't understand why.
And Carlos, I remember he used to, if I'm not mistaken, Allen, he used a heavy bat, but he swung it like a toothpick.
He was a strong man. He used like a 42-ouncer. And during the summertime when he got tired, then he dropped down to like 40 ounces. So,
wow.
You know, he was awesome.
He was
guy.
something.
Yes, he was.
You're watching Monday Night Sports Talk, folks. On the phone with us, former Major League outfielder Carlos May. Again, Carlos played most of his career with the White Sox, also came to the Yankees for a couple seasons, also the Angels, and then he played in Japan. Tony, question?
And Carlos, what is it like being an American player in Japan? Is that a hard translation?
Yes, it is. I didn't know when I was going over there. I went over there, and the umpires, they have to get to know you, and they cheat you. I mean, you have no strike zone. It's up or down and in and out, and they had to get to know you. But they found out that I had decent eyes to play, and they started giving me props. And I hit like 300 my first 3 years, and the last year I got hurt over there. And like I said, but the brand of baseball when I played over there wasn't really that tough. The pitching was like mediocre pitcher.
Yeah.
Then one, two guys maybe could pitch in a major league, but that's about it.
I think it's improved since then, from what I can gather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Carlos, let me throw some things. We have a bunch of things here. First of all, Comiskey Park, you played majority of your years there, Carlos. Maybe you could tell our fans how it was for a hitter to play at Comiskey.
It was great. The fans was right up on you. It was something like Boston and Detroit.
Yeah.
Those old ballparks that the fans and stuff was like right there. And like I said, if you did bad, you heard it, and if you did good, you heard it. But like I said, it was great. The ballpark, like in the summertime, the ball carried. I just loved that old ballpark.
Yeah, Carl. Yeah. I believe Gates Brown told us similar things, Tony, especially about Fenway, Detroit.
Yes, he did.
He said exactly the same thing as far as the comfort of these ballparks.
And he said Fenway, the hitter's background, he liked.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was
very nice.
Fenway was great.
Yeah, that was terrific stuff. I'm looking also, when you went to New York, Carlos, in '76, of course, I mean, I think you didn't play on a 500 team until that '72 White Sox team, which was very good. But of course, you went to '76 to New York, and maybe you could tell our viewers what it was like coming to New York, and especially with the short right field porch for a lefty hitter.
Well, I really didn't want to go. I mean, I hated to leave Chicago, but, unfortunately, baseball is a business, and I had to go. But when I got there, the guys greeted me like I was just never, I was always there. We had Thurman Munson, Catfish Hunter, those guys, and we just had a great ball. I mean, we had a great nucleus of guys. Everybody knew their role. And we won it that year, but unfortunately, Cincinnati, they just steamrollers in the series. But we had just a great bunch of guys. I was just happy to be there.
Yeah, I could imagine. It was a great clubhouse.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Some more information for our folks. Carlos May, over 1,100 hits in his career, Tony. 536 runs batted in. Played in over 1,100 games. Again, most of that coming in Chicago. I'm looking at some of the managers you played for, Carlos. I think there's at least 5, 6 of them. Al Lopez, Chuck Tanner. Well, Chuck Tanner, obviously, you spent a lot of time with him. We've heard he was a really good players manager. What about Chuck Tanner?
Chuck Tanner, yes, he was. He was, you could come and check with anything. He was like a father figure, Plus, he never did downgrade his ball players, using trouble. You could talk to Chuck, and if you played for him, he took care of you, And like I said, he fought for you. He's just an all-around great manager, Plus, he knew a lot of baseball. He knew a lot about baseball.
He sure did. Tony, question?
Yeah, let's stay on the managers for a second. What is it like to play under Billy Martin?
Do we have an adult audience?
Got to keep it clean, Carlos.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Billy was a good baseball guy. I mean, he knew baseball, but he seemed to pit guys against one another. That was the only fault. But then, but evidently, he had a great record, so I guess it worked for him. But but for me, we didn't get along at all.
I understand.
Yeah, I could understand.
Yeah, you can see
You're not the first one that's been on the show that said that either. But in your career, Carlos, you played first base, outfielder, and DH. Where did you feel most comfortable? You probably obviously played most games in the outfield, but where would you prefer to be if you had to do it all over again?
If I had to do it all over, to be outfield.
Outfield again?
Yeah, because I was more relaxed out there. I could go out there and think about my hitting and stuff, and what I did the last that plate appearance or with a pitch that got through me, last to get me out and stuff. But at first base, you was always in the game. You'd have time to do that. And DH, I was thinking about everything but baseball, So
that's the thing about DHs, Tony, and I see Ortiz, and I think about this all the time. If he strikes out, which he's doing a lot of striking out, you just have a long time to think about it, and you can't contribute to the team winning until you get another
You get your next
at-bat
at-bat.
a few innings from
Yeah,
now.
it's
But
a
so I
hard
can
roll.
see exactly what Carlos is saying. Outfielder, you can kind of get a happy median there. But question.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Carlos, as far as when we had Gates on, we were talking about modern day players, and Gates really took umbrage to the fact of, pitchers not completing games and, players begging out with hand nails and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your feeling? I mean, here you were playing Major League Ball with 4 fingers on a hand. Do you think this thing today is a little overblown? Do you think they're trying to protect their livelihood because they're making so much money? What is your take?
I think they are. Like I said, guys now, all they want you to do is like be a 5-inning pitcher. You just call those guys 5 and fly.
Yeah.
They throw 5 innings and look to the dugout to get some help. But that's what it, now it's and everybody's like all pitching is playing a role. You got the starter, you got a long reliever, you got a short reliever, and it's just I don't know. It's just the guys are just spoiled.
Yeah. I'm looking at just for the heck of it, Carlos. I'm looking at some of the pitchers you play with, and you mentioned Jim Cott, Tony. Capish, Hunter. You mentioned 4 or 5 innings to these guys. They laugh at Bob Gibson comes to mind, obviously, but we've talked about him forever.
They laugh at you.
But Carlos played with he played with Nolan Ryan when he was out in California.
Well, didn't Wilbur Wood pitch both games of a doubleheader?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Were you playing that day?
Yes, I was.
Wow.
Been left field in both games.
And guys, also Carlos, I'm looking at Tommy John, Joel Horland, Gary Peters. These guys were good for 7 innings.
Yes, they were.
It was automatic.
Right.
And
where have we gone?
But it's really frustrating. And we anytime we've talked with guys from your era, Gates, Bond, etc., they all say the same thing. It's hard to watch. And John Blue Moon Odom, Tony, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, but I can't understand why all these guys are blowing their arms out. If they go now, they got like a pitch count and all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
They never had a pitch count. And, guys used to throw 130, 135 pitches.
And Jim Cott, exactly, Carlos. And Jim Cott was guest announcing for the Red Sox last weekend, and he kept saying the same thing. He says, your arm will rust out before it wears out. And those guys actually strengthen their arms by pitching so much.
Johnny Saint said that for years.
And the sore arms were a minuscule percentage compared
to what you have today.
Exactly.
It drives you totally crazy. We are on Monday Night Sports Talk, folks. We have the former Major League Outfielder Carlos May on the phone. Tony.
And Carlos, you have a very fine and respectable Major League career. Would there have been something that you would have done differently looking back?
You know what? I think I would have worked on my defense more. Because I love to hit. I usually come out the field with my bat in my back pocket. I didn't think about fielding. But like I said, if I would have had to do it all over again, I would work on in my fielding much more. You always got to work on your weaknesses.
That's for sure.
That's a difficult thing.
And another one of your former teammates, Carlos, in California, I believe, Brian Downing. You remember Brian Downing?
Oh, yeah.
Now, he was one of the first guys that we would think that was bulked up, Tony. He was always a weightlifter and kind of going against the grain because baseball players, they always said, don't get bulked up. But he did.
Exactly.
And he had some good years and everything. But that brings me to the bulking up of today, which involves all the steroids, Carlos. And I just want to get your opinion on maybe these guys, the new era, the Hall of Fame. What are we going to do with these guys down the road when their name comes up for Hall of Fame, when they're kind of associated with steroids?
I don't know. It's just I'm just like a gray area for me because, like I said, I know the guys cheated and stuff, but still they had to have some kind of talent to hit the ball.
Sure.
The steroids do not make you hit a home run and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say.
I see. There's so many.
Like I said, it's a gray area.
Yeah.
And maybe about your bigger brother, your influence that he had on you as far as going into baseball or just having him as a brother. What was it like growing up with a guy named Lee May?
Well, we didn't, we like 5 years apart, and we didn't really, we didn't really talk a lot about baseball. So, man, he told me he advised me as far as on contract when I was in the minor league stuff. But when I got to the big league, we didn't talk a lot about it. I mean, I used to go visit, we used to talk anything but baseball and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't, but it's like, he was my, for as my mentor as far as getting to the big league.
Yeah.
I mean, my brother may I say, hey, this is what I want. this is when I found out what I wanted to do. I wanted to, play. I wanted to be a big leaguer. So as far as that, he was very influential as far as that respect goes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, man, the May family was, again, I was so impressed by Carlos when he came up and what he had to go through. And then, of course, Lee, I've had his glove, and I still look at his name every time I go out on a baseball field. So it's pretty neat. Tony, we got to go out a couple more minutes with Carlos. Question?
And, Carlos, I know in your current job with the White Sox, you talk with a lot of young players and players in the system. What are you telling them? Are you telling them about baseball, life? You telling them about education? You telling them about keep your nose clean? What kinds of things do older ball players say to young ball players these days?
It's more so like off the field stuff, for all the kind of traps and pitfalls that you have out there, and I tell them about it. Plus, they ask me about stuff for as I tell them for hidden wise. I give them a couple of tips and stuff. But it's like I said, it's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, most of it, I advise them against the outside stuff for it, not for baseball in general.
And Carlos, do you see Ron Kittle a lot?
Oh yeah, I always see Ron.
Yeah, Ron's a favorite of ours.
Mr. Talk.
He could talk. He was on our show. He was on a show a couple months ago, and talking similar stuff that you did. And boy, he can put it out there, and he's another good guy.
He certainly is.
Did he let you get a word in?
We got a few in, but we got to fight for it, Carl. He's something, but
he's a good guy.
He is a great guy. Yeah, and maybe
you and the Moose and Ron, you're near and dear to us.
Yeah, those guys are terrific. And Carlos, maybe a quick sentence or two on the current White Sox squad and the job Ozzie Guillen is doing this year.
He's doing a great job. They got a good nucleus. They got some young guys coming up. They got the Beckham and Guest, and those guys are doing a great job. Plus, like with the mixture of the veterans, you got Dye, Kernerko, and Tommy. I think they're going to win. I'm not going to put nothing out there, but they got enough to win it.
Well, that Burley thing last week, and that catch by really Wise is still something. I'll never see anything like it before.
That was a jewel, man.
It was something, but
yes, it was.
It was something for the ages. If he does nothing throughout his career,
he'll be remembered for that.
Big time.
He's going to do something great. He's a good pitcher.
Yeah, he sure is. But Carlos, our time is up. I want to thank you for staying in touch with me and being such a great guest. And we'll continue to be in touch. And we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us. And please continue good health and our best to your whole family.
I see you. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Take care now.
Bye.